What's up, guys? I'm glad you're here. My name is Drake, and you're listening to the Double Click Podcast by Holy Hill Media. All right, this is episode 47 of the Double Click Podcast with Phoenix Phillips. Man, we've been talking about this since, was it last year that we tried initially?
It probably was. Yeah,
I
exactly.
think it was November of last year, of 2024, that we actually tried to do all this, man. So I appreciate your time, man. We've been trying to do this now for, I know at least 6 months. One thing happened, another thing happened. So I'm excited to get into it, man. Let's just dive in, brother. I know you're a busy guy. So just introduce yourself in the sense of 30,000 foot view. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you located? And who do you do it for?
Yeah. So my name is Phoenix Phillips. I'm currently located in San Angelo, which is in West Texas, originally from Central Texas. And I am and this is always where it gets hard because everybody has different names for it, but I'm a, freelancer, professional videographer. I make videos. That's kind of the easiest thing I can say. And I've been specifically serving the tattoo market for about the past 7 to 8 years. Kind of, that's the cliff notes, I would say.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. That's perfect. And we actually connected because you had did some work for a former employee of mine for her husband's brand, LRX, Maggie and Ryan husband. That's how you connected. We connected through them. He was, even when Maggie connected us, she was like, I don't think that he's going to be the kind of connection that you guys will probably do video together for, like, because we do a lot of work with like residential construction, service-based businesses. He's like, I don't think that's the direction, but maybe. But more than anything, she was really advocating that we connect because she think that we would click in business. And I think that that's like a majority of reason why we're here, man, because I really admire your business sense. But also, man, just growing up, my uncle, I told you this before, my uncle owned a tattoo shop. They were there for like 20-something years. Just everything down to the smells, the old flash that I wasn't allowed to look at as a kid, the coils, the machines just vibrating, buzzing in the air, like everything to me just created this like thing that I was just like drawn to. And so I love like this tattoo industry, man. And then when I started talking to you, man, and then found out that, the artist connection was something that you were super passionate about, and just getting into the depths and the roots of that industry, and just kind of how you view your creative process in general, man. Like, I feel like for creative, you are very well communicated. A lot of creatives aren't that well organized, structured, and communicated. You bring a different style and sense than I've seen to the world of video, man. So I'm excited to have this conversation, man, just to understand what the fabric of Phoenix really is and what makes you different, what makes you unique. And you've done a lot of things, man. You're young, but you've done a lot of things, man. You've done film all over for international names, man. So I'm just, again, excited to have you into the podcast, man, and kind of break into that. And so what I want to start with, man, is just like, how the heck did you get into videography, video work, freelance work, cinematography, whatever you want to call it? How did you get in? And that was like 11, 12 years ago?
Yes.
Something like that. How did you first get in? And then that will kind of like precurse the rest of the combo.
Right. Yeah. It's getting to the point when I first started, which was my freshman year of high school, at least as far as video stuff goes. I feel like for those first few years, it's super easy to keep dates when you're only like 3-4 years out, but now it's 2025. And I'm probably going to say some dates that maybe outright, or some years or numbers or things like that. But yeah, essentially, like I said, started off freshman year, 2014, I picked up a camera. But I think one really key part to add into that, and you've kind of already mentioned it already with Maggie and Ryan and LRX, is, to me, my journey with picking up a camera is directly tied into CrossFit or weightlifting. Before I picked up a camera, I started doing CrossFit and Olympic style weightlifting when I was in 5th grade. And this was in 2009. And that's what I thought I was going to do with my life. That's what I pretty much put all my time and energy into, basically from 5th grade until probably I graduated high school in 2017. And so how I picked up a camera initially was like my parents owned a CrossFit gym for a bit. We were at a gym. They loved it so much that kind of became their passion. They opened up a CrossFit affiliate. And naturally, as you know, with a business owner, especially brick and mortar, you know, they're coaching and doing all these things. So they had a camera to kind of try to do their own little guerrilla marketing. And I picked it up, just taking some photos here and there. And it wasn't really, I would not say a passion at that point. It was just something I kind of did. They had it there. But my freshman year, I took an elective course, just an audio video course. And I took it, and same thing, man. It wasn't like, oh, and just the spark was lit immediately, just because we were sitting there learning how to edit, learning how to do video. But once I realized that, hey, I can take this camera and film the things that I want to film, all of a sudden it wasn't a lesson anymore. I could take the camera outside and now take all these new tools that I was learning within school and kind of mesh it together. That is actually when probably that spark happened. And because of my passions at the time, the CrossFit and weightlifting, all of my relationships and all of my clientele really started there. And that, you know, is the origins. And I'm super, I guess, adamant about that. And whether you do CrossFit, you like fitness, this, that, whatever, I don't really care. That's just more of like, I give so much credit, even though it's maybe a thing. I just always think about the individuals at that time, you know, to where that's really where I started, where I picked up a camera freshman year. By the end of high school, I had been to Greece, I'd been to Alaska, I'd been to California, I'd been to Florida. And all of this was a mixture of different brands that I was associated with, more or less starting as an athlete. Biggest ones being Progenics, and then another breast cancer nonprofit called Barbells for Boobs. And those are the two big ones that I got in with them and really met them and built a relationship. And then as I was developing as a videographer, more and more of those opportunities came. So the Greece trip was for a guy, and this, you know, everything's connected. He's a guy who's got a big part of my life, big mentor that I reconnected with later in life. But I, you know, did a trip filming with him, and then did an internship with him in the summer, and did all these kind of things within high school, to where by the time I graduated, that I was like, I you know, I got good grades, like, but I took on-level classes. Like, school was never really my thing. To where I was like, I kind of just want to pursue this. I almost graduated high school a year early and just wanted time to do video stuff. And so I ended up, you know, not doing that. And I will say this because, like, I very much, you know, was raised where it's like, okay, you're going to go to school and then you're going to go to college, and, you know, that kind of route. And so the fact that I think it became very evident, not just to me, but to my parents, to where they're like, I was like, I don't know if I really want to go to school. And they're like, I don't really know if he needs to go to school, you know, because I will say this, where, like, if you're going to do video, I think if you're going to be in the movie industry, like, go for school all the way, just because the relationships you make and the things you do is going to be invaluable. But, like, with the age of internet, and, like, this is, I mean, what's crazy is, like, I'm going to say this sentence where, like, this is before Chat GPT, you know what I mean? Or, like, it's before AI.
Are we officially that old? That's crazy.
Dude,
that's
right?
even a thing right now.
So, and, you know, all these things, to where I specifically remember one moment. I was in a psychology class that was like, you kind of had to do it just to graduate within high school. And I was traveling so much in high school. We put all the days together. I missed half a semester. And like, I would call it a deal with the school. It was excused, this and that. Texas has all these laws. That's my dog. My wife probably just got home. But I remember being in that psychology class, and, you know, I was traveling a lot. I was gone all the time. And my psychology teacher was like, kind of talking about different paths in life. And she was like, yeah, not everybody's going to go to school. She literally points at me. She's like, look at Phoenix. Like, he's probably going to be fine never going to college. And I'm like, this is in high school. You know what I mean? And, like, these are the teachers that are normally like, you know, go to school, get good grades, this and that. But I think it was very evident, you know, that wasn't going to be my path. Yeah. And again, not to say there's anything wrong with that. That just wasn't for me. with all that being said, graduated high school. Within a month, I went and moved out to Southern California. And that was a big thing because, you know, I grew up in a pretty small town in Texas, relatively small depending on where you grew up. But that, you know, definitely had a desire to get out of small town living, go somewhere. And because I'd visited California, that's where a lot of the brands that I was working with were at. And so I kind of just fell in love with California in general, but also knew people and had connections out there. So I moved out there. Like I said, within a month of graduating high school, I slept on like an air mattress in one of my office for one of those brands I was talking about, for the people I was working, you know, with. They didn't even really have a job for me at the time. I did end up doing work with them, but you know, they kind of fostered, you know, me, you know, to do the video stuff, to do the athlete stuff. And so, you know, I was on a couch just trying to make it happen for the first like 6 months. Eventually they had to move and they're like, hey, we're moving. And very nicely, they're like, you're not coming with us. You know what I mean? So,
you got to go, man.
Exactly. So that ended up, you know, I guess now getting kind of where the tattoo journey, or, you know, tattoo niche, you could say, comes into play is I was working for one of those brands at the time, and we were working out of what's called Vatican Studios in Lake Forest, California. And essentially, when I was working there, we see these guys and they're doing amazing tattoos, and I mean, really like artists. And that was kind of my first introduction. I didn't really go around tattoo shops or that culture in any way, shape, or form, being from Central Texas. And so eventually they, you know, grabbed me to kind of start doing some videos for them just because I was there all the time. And then, you know, one video turned to two turned to three turns to part-time. Eventually I left Progenics, was the company. I eventually, you know, stopped working with them, and then kind of went full-time with Bishop Tattoo Supply, and they're a pretty big name within the tattoo space. And so again, all that was just like right place, right time, like knowing the right people. And so that's kind of what led me, you know, to the tattoo space. And like I said, it's kind of long-winded. But to me, those kind of beginning years, honestly, again, and now I'm getting further and further away from that. I think kind of when I sit back and reflect on it, like how pivotal that was, you know, for me. Like I'm sitting here right now at 26, you know, but we're talking about when I was, you know, 16, 15, you know what I mean? And so it's been, you know, over a decade now, which is kind of crazy, but that's kind of, you know, the origins of it all. And
not many people can say they've been in an industry for a decade when they're still in their 20s, bro, let alone their mid 20s. You know what I mean? And this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on an interview. I mean, every time we have a conversation, I'm like, I wish we would have recorded this. But like, I think that one of the things that is super interesting about you, your story, and your craft is the deliberate nature of not only your work, but your communication style. And you can see it in your work, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't have had the success you've had. But that comes at an age that you usually see that like mid 30s to late 30s is when people find the stride that I feel like you're already in. And that's what I want to mine out today a bit. I want to figure out what is that about you, because I've tried to put my finger on it and I've got some assumptions, but I want to hear it just through the dialogue, man. So all that said, man, just to allude to the future, but all that said, man, you made this transition, right? Almost just kind of because the cards were dealt to you that way into the tattoo industry. You didn't have any tattoos at the time. You weren't necessarily drawn to it for any reason. It just kind of was there. It's paying work. You were just grinding because you were young and trying to keep food on your own table, right? But like, what was it about the tattoo industry? And I'm going to ebb and flow between like where we're at and where you've been, things like that. But what was it about the tattoo industry that like, I feel like you're actually passionate about it now, the stories within that industry? Is it the history? Is it the art with the history? Is it the grit? Because you're also like, your work is super gritty, but like the way you carry yourself is super clean. Like the way you communicate, the way you dress, the way you look, like everything. So it's like, what is it about the industry that pulls that passion out of you so much so that you know, we'll get to it, but you have a passion project on the side, which is arguably one of the most well-known pieces of your work. And it's all based on that passion deliberately within that industry. So Where did that passion come from, or how did that develop over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really driven the passion, and it's kind of funny what you say about like the clean and gritty and this and that. Like, I was born and raised like Central Texas, nowhere near tattoos, this and that. Like the very complete, what I would say, like opposite culture of like SoCal, you know, black and gray, you know, specifically like Chicano black and gray tattooing. Like those, I went from, you know, living in a small town to like being catapulted to like literally brushing shoulders with some of the best, you know, black and gray tattoo artists in the world. And the one thing I've always said about, I think what's given me like a little bit of a superpower in the tattoo space is I did not know anything. So all of a sudden, my boss and my mentors, Franco Vescovi being one, who's the owner and founder of Bishop Tattoo Supply, and his right-hand man, the guy who makes everything happen, James David Howard, or better known as just James Worldwide to the Bishop audience. But I really, you could really call it a trickle down effect. Those two guys, and not just them, but a lot of people, you know, that been there, were there, and continue to be there, were just so passionate that I think that kind of rubbed off on me. And all of a sudden now I'm meeting these artists face to face, and these are, again, world-renowned people, but I'm just meeting them as a human. You know, I'm like, oh, that guy or that girl was super cool. And then I go and somebody shows me their Instagram and they got 1 million followers. You know what I mean? Like it was always, you know, I think that was the human component of it, you know? And so naturally, by working with these people, I think I'm naturally a curious guy. So it's like, okay, well, that person's connected to this person and this person learned from that person. And this is how they got their style. And it really is like when you dive into the tattoo world, it's just a big, like almost family tree, and everything's connected. But I think the one key kind of element that stuck out to me that I believe makes the tattoo industry different than most industries is it's still kind of old school in a way. And some people are going to look at that as maybe a good and bad thing. But like respect is such a huge thing. We came from it. Like I say, like the tattoo industry came from a place 20, 30 years ago where like, if you were going to open up a shop down the street, like it might get burned down. Because, you know, you didn't share about your craft. You didn't do this. It was much more territorial. And the people that were in it, you know, came from much heavier backgrounds than they do nowadays. Like it came from gangs. It came from bikers. And now I'd say it's definitely more in the social media online realm. And you're having people that are like true artists get into the space, you know. But again, you can even go further back in the tattoo history where it's like, you know, it's tribal, it's nature. Like you have people, you have mummies that are getting dug up from, you know, hundreds of thousands of years ago, like with tattoos and evidence of tattoos. So it's just like it, you know, where it started in the modern kind of day of tattooing is crazy. And like, yeah, I guess that kind of passion just came from other people. But then it kind of, once, you know, I saw how passionate they were, and just by being around it so much, that I kind of naturally got my own passion, and mixing that with the video, you know, that's kind of where things like really clicked, because now I'm in this world and it's very much a like, okay, you know, this person, like you're cool. Like you can't just be let into every single door. And a lot of that, you know, kind of old school mentality is, you know, maybe not as prevalent as it was, but it is still there. But I think that's been to my advantage, because the more people I know and the more people, you know, I'm able to connect with, it's like just the bigger that, you know, fishing net, if you want to call it that, gets to where, and I say this not out of place of like trying to brag or this or that, whatever, but by proxy of being in the space long enough and being connected who I'm connected to, like they always talk about that, was at 5 degrees of separation. And I'm 2-3 phone calls away from any tattoo artist in the world. And like, that's not a flex. That's just a fact. You know what I mean? And so like, it's a global industry, but it's still kind of small and tight knit. And I think that's the thing that I really love about it. And so now it's kind of gotten to the point to where like I went through this own journey, you know, of being passionate about it, figuring out about these artists in the background. And I mean, I feel like I still know this much. And there, you know, the world is so vast with the knowledge that you can learn. to where, you know, like I said, a lot of those guys, like when they did open up shops, they asked, you know, the OG down the street, like, hey, I'm going to open up here. Is that okay? You know what I mean? Like I was surrounded by people that still had that respect. So I feel like that kind of, again, I learned from that. And I
Yeah.
feel like not every media person, whether they do graphic design or video or whatever, that does work for the tattoo industry, I feel like they don't go about it with that mentality. It's just like, cool, I'm just going to do a gig, do this, do that. Like, I feel like for me, it's like I genuinely care about, especially some of the artists, like they're actually legitimate friends, you know? So it's like, how can I best translate who they are, what they are to not just the tattoo world, but to the general public? Because I always think about, I'm trying to like, you know, give a story to somebody who knows nothing, you know what I mean, about this space. So how can I present it in a good light?
Yeah, which is interesting to me because like you were there, right? Like how do you present that story to somebody who doesn't quite know it yet? Or how do you articulate that story that you respect to somebody who also knows it and like admires that story, right? And it's so interesting you say that because the industry, I mean, historically has been a very cliquey industry, right? Where it's like, again, like originating in historically just kind of a grungier, grittier environment, neighborhoods. That was kind of the people, you know, in the studios. And it was like this thing where it was like, there's just a lot of history there. So for you to come in and not really have much experience with it, but like kind of immediately around the guys who have the heartbeat of the entire industry and like legit 30, 40, 50 years experience, that literally kind of baptized you in the purest way to understand and be introduced into the industry. So from the beginning, right, from the early days, you had that experience with guys who have, that's literally all they know. And people know them from all over the world. So then these stories are coming up and, you know, your passion's meeting their passion and they respect you because this is another thing that's all, you know, all over the, I mean, this is everywhere, right? Everybody wants to be homies with their tattoo artist. Like, and sometimes it's a little weird in the sense where it's like, you're almost trying too hard a little bit. Sometimes you've seen it. My wife's a tattoo artist, been there doing it like 12, 13 years now. So I've seen that too, which is like, my wife's the sweetest person in the world. So that's not a thing. And I'm not to say that that is a thing to other people, but I do know a lot of people get real weird about it because they're fans of it. Naturally, they're fans of it. They fanboy, they fangirl, just like anybody that's passionate about any other industry, right? But the fact that you came in almost with a sense of naivety and you were just doing your craft almost allowed you to be respected. It sounded like to be respected early on by these OGs because you weren't out here fanboying because you didn't know until you knew, right?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think that's a huge element of it. Like I said, the one thing that as I've gotten older, you know, the relationship that I have with people hasn't necessarily changed, but it has been different purely because I think, I mean, so many people are willing to help like a young, passionate person, you know? So at those times, you know what I mean? Like I'm coming in, you know, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed and like just with a camera, you know, but just like genuinely like happy and like wanting to learn. And so I think a lot of people, you know, saw that and were able to take me under my wing. And I think like, again, kind of going back to jump forward, like I'm the youngest on both sides of my family. I don't have a huge family. I got like 3 cousins and an older sister. But like, so always being around older people from Texas, it's the, you know, the yes, sir, you know, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, you know, like holding the door, like when I meet somebody, like shaking them, you know, or looking them in the eye, shaking while I'm shaking their hand. And I feel like that kind of, you know, you could probably say I'm an extrovert for sure. Like I enjoyed like conversating with people and talking with them. And so as much as the video stuff has what, you know, maybe introduced me to people or got me in the door or doing that, I think it's those relationships. That is what makes, I feel like things stand the test of time. And obviously that goes into the business sense, you know, to where it's like, I've always said this, where it's like, if you have somebody with a camera, you know what I mean? But it's like, they could be like a 10 out of 10 skill, but maybe you don't vibe with them that well, or you don't work with them that well. Yeah, maybe the product they give you is great, but like if you've got that 7.5 out of 10 videographer, or that 8 out of 10 videographer, but it's like they're the homie, you love working with them, you know what I mean, you're gonna have a good time, that person's winning every single day of the week.
100%, and can probably charge more.
Exactly. So I think like that's the kind of interesting kind of, I guess, throughput. And like I would also say this too, to where it's like that doesn't mean like go into a relationship just like hoping or expecting to get something out of it. I think that's where a lot of people
100%.
fail, because people can kind of feel that energy. And like especially like, again, moving from small town Texas to Orange County and kind of being in LA, like that's all it is. It's like people are saying like, hi, nice to meet you, but it's like, hey, how many followers you got? You know what I mean? And so I feel like having like genuine connection with people, you know what I mean? Regardless if you end up doing work with them or not, like that will exceed everything. And I feel like that's gotten me in more places and into more doors than anything else.
I love that. And I want to stop there for a second because, at the basis of passion and curiosity, which is, when we've talked about this, is kind of like your driving force, man. I think that's kind of like shaped you into who you are over time. Those are the two characteristics that it sounds like is like last the test of time for you, your passion, and your curiosity. At the basis of those things, especially within curiosity, there's a foundation of humility there where it's like, I know that I don't know everything. Right. And I think that within that foundation of curiosity as well, like you have to be able to, and I think, this is coming from like a faith-based background, like to see people as on this pedestal essentially, and seeing yourself as lowly, not to see yourself as small, but lowly. There's a simple, I guess, understanding of just what meekness truly is right there, where it's like, yeah, sure. Could I hold this conversation with you? Could I try to be remembered by you? Can I try to add value? But there's also a portion that's like, let me bring value to where what happens naturally through conversation. And so this is interesting to me because earlier you said that the tattoo industry, which I would agree from my perspective, is like, it's a big family tree is what you said. Everybody's kind of connected in one way or another. Like, it's weird because I feel like the tattoo industry is like literally quadrupled in the last 3 years for whatever reason. But even still, it's still kind of a small community, at least people who've been, who are in it and actually in it or have been in it. Now, because that's a small, tight-knit community, and because of like this approach of this lowliness, like this humility, and it's like, how can I just bring value to you and just honestly like steward the relationship? And the word that keeps coming up in my mind is like relational. The phrase is relational equity, like building that relational equity. That almost like kind of catapulted you into this industry, into where all of a sudden, you're working with people that I don't know if a lot of these people, a lot of the listeners will know some of these people, but like Freddie Negretti, Mr. Cartoon, I'm sure people know about Mr. Cartoon, maybe not, but like there's just so many names out there that are like, dude, they're in the Hall of Fame, bro, right? They're in the Hall of Fame. And that's, and you've kind of alluded to that just being such an honor, right? But as you get to those names, right? And we're going to go into that a little bit just because I want people to know the magnitude of the level of work you're doing. And we'll get into that and then, some more of your passion project in a second. But the idea of like working with these artists who have the caliber and the industry respect, whether they do the same style or not, whether they're doing like black and gray realism, whether they're doing that Chicano black and gray, whether they're doing, it doesn't matter what the style they're doing. If people know Mr. Cartoon, right? Like that's just like, right? So when you have that opportunity and you start connecting and making these connections and almost, and I'm saying this proverbially, like climbing the ladder, not that that's what you were trying to do, but you're kind of like going on this journey and you were literally getting like experiencing higher and higher caliber of artists that you're working with. And what I hear you saying is like that came from just really just coming humbly and just being like, look, I'm here to add value and learn from you and document your story. Now, in that sense, was there any period in that time, in that transition of you kind of moving up the proverbial ladder, where you were like, man, I'm working with higher and higher caliber artists, more and more well-known artists. Naturally, more people will see it. But I don't know if my work or my quality of work is this to that standard or that caliber or that echelon that they're sitting. Has that ever been a worry for you? Because again, right now, you even said like you could be a 7.5, but have like great people skills and like show up for people, actually answer the phone. Like, don't just answer the phone when they're paying you. You know what I mean? Like, be there. And I hear you say that, but like, were you that 7.5 guy with really good relationships for a while? Like, did you ever feel like you're doing work for like these guys on this Paramount, but maybe you're still growing?
I definitely have had the thought, like, is this good enough? You know, where when I'm doing certain projects, I will say though, in kind of the opposite sense, I've gained more confidence by doing those projects with these, you know, bigger named clients. And I will say this, because, you know, I always got to give credit where credit is due. Where like most of these big names and companies that I've been able to work with has been directly through the brands, you know, that I've had a relationship with.
Yeah,
where though, as I mean, even within the past, you know, 2-3 years, where I've gained, I feel like a lot more confidence is doing, you know, videos, collaborations with, and give me a second to think because some of these aren't public yet. So I'm just going to make sure I say the right ones. But, you know, doing collaborations,
PR
you know,
team
with,
emailing me about cutting
right?
the podcast.
Yeah. With Mr. Cartoon, you know, with Sublime, with Tupac Estate, you know, with Louis Vuitton, did some stuff with Puma, you know, before, and kind of in the tattoo space. Again, I'm working with, you know, Bishop. I'm working with, you know, some other brands, and they're maybe doing a relationship or collaboration, you know, but the fact that like it still has to go through their marketing team. Somebody at those brands and companies still has to check yes. So don't get me wrong, I've still seen some pretty bad videos go out of some pretty major collaborations, and I cross my fingers and hope no one thought about that, you know, with the product that I've been able to make with companies. And I'll never sit here and say that like my work is the best of the best. I always believe I can get better, and I always believe that there's people out there, you know, that do better work than me, you know, and I kind of try to chase them. But you know, knowing that people signed off on those projects, they went public, they went live to big audiences, you know, from those brands, I think that kind of gave me a lot of confidence. And I think I've always kind of had that mindset, like I said, starting so young, I've always been like chase, get better, get better, get better. And so with kind of those bigger collaborations, I've been like, oh, okay, like you have a seat at the table. Like you know, you earned your seat at the table. And even saying that is kind of weird because, like I said, I'm not the puff your chest out kind of guy. I say that, well, I'm very much not a puff my chest out guy in public, but in my mindset, I'm very much the like, I'm going to do the best I can. And like, I'm going to run you over. And like, you know, yeah, it's one of those things to where like, I think I gain the most motivation and stuff from almost like non-tattoo related projects. Like I'm trying to look at my tattoo related project and I'm putting it up to the Vice documentary, you know, to, you know, the new Netflix series that's super popular right now, The Last Chance U, the whatever. Like I get so much motivation from that. I'm like, how can I take little bits and pieces, you know, whether it be visually, whether it be storytelling it, and then put that within this niche that I know. And I think the more of the subject, you know, whether it's a person, it's a place, it's a thing, I think that just leans itself to the product. Where I've seen so many people, you know, go into, you know, shoot tattoo stuff. And it's not that it's bad, like the lighting's good, this and that, whatever, but like they don't fully understand it. So I don't think it comes off the way, you know, they maybe fully wanted it to.
That's interesting. So you're saying you believe that, and I would agree, and it almost sounds obvious, but it's not. Like industry knowledge translates into production. And it's like, because I think that's super interesting because it feels like you almost subconsciously or even through memory know the small nuanced value points, and the creative can reflect that, right? Like it's interesting because, you know, in a lot of senses, like I see a lot of your work as like documentary style, right? when you did, when the one that came out most recently, and we're gonna talk about it soon. So I'm just not gonna keep hiding the name, but like the Artist Connection, right? Like the YouTube page that you interview a lot of these artists, and you kind of get into the story and this documentary style. It's crazy. And like for those listening, like go check it out. There's so many. I mean, in my opinion, this is probably the best page at what you did, that specifically what you're doing here. This is the best page on YouTube for this kind of stuff. Like, I love it. I think you're hitting artists that people actually want to hear about. Like Good Time Charlie's crazy. Like that was the first one I watched. Like that's crazy to me. You know, and then obviously hearing about just like even the Gabriel Godinez, like that kind of stuff to me, I'm like, I've been following him on Instagram since I was like 14. You know what I mean? Just crazy to see this. And they're done well. They're done well. And I feel like most recently for me, the Freddie Negretti one that you put out, like the in the beginning, you allowed him to speak almost like he was talking to you first, but then you cut straight to him talking again. Like it was like this raw entry. And then like sometimes he would dialogue with you in between his responses to the questions, but you kept it in there. Then he would finish saying something almost to you, and then you cut right to what he was saying about it. Like to me, that's raw. And that is what people that feel, know, bleed the industry want to see. They don't want to see a polished version of Freddie. That would make people feel uncomfortable. Like that's not him. Don't put him on a Pixar movie. That's just not him. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that in and of itself, that awareness translates unconsciously for you. And that's why I think you're great at what you do, man. I think, and here I am just gassing you up, but like at the end of the day, what I'm saying is this. I think that what you said just jumped out at me, because it's like when you know the industry, that translates into some sort of fine wine in your product, whether that be your art, whether that be your writing, whether that be your videography, whether that be photography, graphic design, whatever. And I think that might be a piece of what makes you special at what you do. And so let's actually dive into this, because I think that this is one of the coolest things that you've done collectively, but within the Artist Connection, man. You've told me about it a little bit. Like every time we talk, you tell me a little bit more about it. But the last time we spoke, you had been on a hiatus, which you address in the video you put out with Freddie Negretti. But like, what was it? What was it that made you really want to? I mean, I know, but tell the audience, why did you want to start this this series? What was it about? What was it about the artist story that you felt like, man, I have to capture this? Not only have to capture this, I want to have a full series about this. Like, just tell me about this, I guess, the drawing board getting started with this.
For sure. So, I mean, like I said, in most of the conversation we've had up to this point has been about like my client work. And
Yeah,
so that, you know, with that actually showed me my love for doing like documentaries, short documentaries, like storytelling, where I was able to do some project with Bishop. The very first and most notable one is
sorry, real quick, for the audience, explain to them what Bishop Rotary is. Like, what is the brand? What do they do?
So Bishop Rotary, mostly known worldwide for their rotary tattoo machine. You have the big coils that are loud, and then the rotaries are kind of a very modernized version of like the prison machine. But Franco Vescovi founded Bishop Rotary in 2008. He was making homemade machines. It's grown to a global brand that it is today. They're most known for their machines, but they make, you know, inks and needles and, you know, sell a bunch of other stuff. But they're one of the only tattoo owned businesses, you know, in the whole space. So that's kind of really what makes them special. They're based in the West Coast.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So they're, you know, based in the West Coast. So super, like I said, black and gray, you know, that kind of environment, because there's all these little subsections in tattooing. So big brand. They had an artist, go back to that project, named Zach Hunter, better known as Southpaw. He lost his dominant arm in
Wilmington. He's from Wilmington, where I'm at right now.
Yeah. So sorry, I got a bug flying around. But you know, they brought him on as an artist. We ended up doing kind of a small feature story on him. And that was like the eye opener of like, I really like telling stories. I had a fun time doing it. The response from the video was crazy. I still have people that I meet that bring that video up to this day. And I don't even know when that went out. It had to have been 2017, 2018, maybe 2019. Like it,
further,
you know,
I think it's 2016, 2017.
Yeah. And so that, is kind of what sparked, a big interest in the storytelling. But naturally, and you know this better than anybody, with doing client work is, it's for business. So it's like, okay, we're making, commercials or informational ads or this and that. Not every single piece can be a brand play, storytelling. Let's sit down, dig deep with an artist, no matter who they are. And so with that, it was like, okay, well, I have these relationships with the artist. I have the desire to tell these stories. Like, why can I not just start doing that on my own time? I have the resources and the ability to do it. For me, it only costs my time, unless I gotta, fly or drive or eat a meal or whatever, but, and so that's kind of where it started, was, also being able to create projects, and I love all the people I work with, but there's still, the back and forth with a project of, okay, we got to prove that, we got to do this, you know what I mean? And so being able to have something that's truly my own, to be able to shape and craft and present the way I want it to, that was kind of where it started. And actually, and I kind of mentioned this, I believe, in that Gabriel Godinez video, where he was a guy I had a relationship with. He's sponsored by Bishop. We'd met. I've since, been tattooed by him. He was doing YouTube stuff.
You got a tattoo by him?
Yeah, I got.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
I'm not gonna stand
Let's
up.
see it, man. Come on. Let's see it.
Let's get the. Oh gosh, I didn't stand up.
Hey, Tiger on the thigh. I heard too. Let's go. That's clean, man. That's awesome.
We're not quite done yet. We got to finish that up. But he was doing YouTube, and I was just basically consulting, like helping him out, like, okay, these cameras, this lens, make an intro, whatever. And then that kind of was like, I mean, I've always liked YouTube, but I'm like, I think this would truly be the best platform, to create and put out like long form storytelling, real authentic content, excuse me. And so that, kind of started to where it's always a mix, because I've used quite a bit of the footage, that I've gotten from working, and luckily Bishop's very cool with that. I always credit them with the stuff, it's stuff that I've shot, but it's for them, know. Right. But
they're usually pretty cool about letting you do that.
They're super cool, about letting me do that. And I always clear it like, hey, I'm putting this out. This is what I'm doing. Just always double check it again, like out of, just respect, what I mean? Because they don't have to let me use that stuff. To where even the, latest video that went out with Freddie Negretti, like I was about to put it out because I hadn't put a video out in a year. And I was like, I need to check. So like I got in contact with Freddie, make sure that he cleared it. He watched it before it went out. And so, that's something that, that's a whole different tangent, but that kind of goes back to that respect piece. But, with that being said, though, like the Gabriel Godinez stuff and other things, like there are projects that I am completely starting from scratch. And I think the hard part, at least for the YouTube sphere, is like, I want to put quality into it. I named it the Artist Connection because I kind of want to be that bridge for what I would say the everyday person is, somebody that doesn't know anything about the tattoo space to the tattoo world. Think about any friend you have or yourself. Everyone's passionate. Like they love football, or they love basketball, or they love, chess or whatever it might be. Like they know the most popular people in those worlds. You know what I mean? And like, even like coming from the CrossFit space, the most popular person in the CrossFit space, they can still go and watch, movie at, Cinemark or AMC down the street. You know what I mean? And you could say the same thing about the tattoo space. So all these big names, you know what I mean, to the everyday person are just people, like, because they don't know their story and their background. And not every, superstar, tattoo artist needs more gas. Like some of them, they're already there. Maybe some of them are a little too big for their britches already, So for me, because I think this kind of what I would call like hype beast, getting a, 3 little dots for $5,000, at a tattoo shop, or them doing a crazy collaboration with, Supreme or whatever. Like, I'm still a huge fan of all that stuff. I think it's cool, but because I've been in the industry long enough, I know that's not the heart and soul of it. Yeah. Like the heart and soul is that, somebody bearing their life story to a tattoo artist while they're getting a memorable tattoo, on their arm. And, it's just like that kind of untangible piece is kind of an impossible task, because that's what I'm really trying to capture and bring forth to the screen, even though it's not something, you know, you can always just bottle up. If you could, then, you know, everybody would do it. And so I think that's kind of where the new goal and mission has aligned, where it's like, a lot of the reason I've done videos with what I call the OGs, you know, with, you know, Good Time Charlie and with Freddie Negretti, and, you know, there's some more I'd love to do projects with, because unfortunately, a lot of the OGs have passed away in the past, you know, 2, 3, 4 years. And again, they came from a time where you weren't videoing stuff. You weren't sharing your knowledge. You weren't sharing your stories. Like, everything was kept close to the chest. Now, all of them have gotten older and are more willing to share those things, those stories, you know, those memories. And so I'd love to be able to capture it, you know, before they go. That way it can get passed on to the next generation and to the people who really care about it. Because that's my thing, is there's this almost, I don't know if you would call it like a quiet war or a cold war within the tattoo space with the old heads and the new people, you know, to where like the old heads, it's like you got to get an apprentice, you know, apprenticeship at a studio and kind of eat shit for a little bit and kind of do this and that. And then the new people that are just like, you know, bought a machine on Amazon, learned online, open up a private studio once they get some money. And again, I'm the videographer. Who am I to say that one's way better than the other? You know what I mean? But there are these like traditions and rules and things that, you know, I do think are special, and again, have that intangible kind of thing that makes the tattoo industry special. And so with that, because like people are always kind of like, oh, like, you know, they need to learn about the people that came before them, which I believe is true. I think they should do that. But sometimes that information isn't readily out there. You got to know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody just to hear this little story. So my thing is like, I'm not trying to say people shouldn't go and dive in and do their research. They absolutely should. But I was born 1998, 26 years old. I grew up in the, you know, technology. I had a phone, you know, like early middle school. I came from like MP3 player, you know, like old dial-up computer, all the way now to where
you've seen the dinosaur technology.
Exactly. You know, so I know how my generation, how people my age, a little bit older than me, even younger than me, consume media. Like, we're not going to the library, you know, and I just so happen to be passionate and skilled in this, you know, video making, you know, world, to where like that's basically, it's just modern day storytelling. Like, we're not cracking up books as much anymore. So it's my kind of way of like, I can very cleanly present a cool story that somebody can get something out of to this new generation, where all they have to do is open up YouTube, find it, click it, you know, if it does interest them. And if it doesn't, cool, they can move on to the next thing. But at least it's like readily available to them. And so hopefully that excuse of like, oh, I can't learn about it, you know what I mean? Or like, I didn't know about this or that, because it's like, there are some people that, you know, have done great things that people don't know about. Where like that Freddie Negretti video is a prime example, where that Smile Now, Cry Later piece, like so many people know of, but they didn't know he was the one, you know, who created that idea. And again, every idea comes from another idea and this and that. We kind of get into that in the video, but it's like, you just, you know, the more you're in it, the more, like I said, you realize how all those things are connected. And so it's like, again, you kind of see, like, I'm excited just talking about it. So it's like, if I can get a little bit of that excitement and put it into a video and present it in a way that I know people will watch it and that it's entertaining, it doesn't feel like a PowerPoint boring presentation that you're going to sleep through, you know, like, that's cool to me, because now I can genuinely like give the audience something that they can run and take away with. And in this age of short form, quick 30-second, you know, content, like, I would much rather put a lot of time and energy into a video that, you know, has a much longer shelf life, that can live for 10 years, you know what I mean? And still bring value to people.
That to me, I think, is the essence of what makes that, you know, just specifically that passion project so special, because man, it's almost as if you can bring people. Do you know when you open up a book and it's old book and you can almost smell the past? I feel like that's what you do with this video, like these videos, man. I don't know if it's just like, 'cause like I love nerding out about this stuff, but it feels like you could smell the residue of history through your pieces. And like, it's not just because of the stories, man. It is also because of your work in your post-production and your pre-production. And I don't know. It's not my world. Like, obviously I run in that world of media, but like, I'm not the one running with the camera anymore. So it's like, but what you do, it leaves a residue of the story that I feel like is so cool. And it can invite the average Joe in to experience what used to be told in the alleys where they were smoking cigarettes and talking shit back and forth. You know what I mean? And I think too, man, one of the things that is really cool about this is I think this is the perfect time for this, because right now I do believe the industry is being whitewashed a bit by a lot of people who are just buying Amazon machines or just like doing research, and or like just because they know Bishop, they're buying some sort of like rotary machine and just getting into it because they can buy some fake skin that looks like a computer mouse and just get on it, right? Or they find out somebody's doing it on a melon, so they practice for a month, and then all of a sudden they're in a shop, and then they're like, you know, the apprentice days are over. They don't want to, like you said, quote unquote, eat shit anymore. They want to go straight to making they want to go straight to making 65, 75%. It's like, yo, the dudes that built the shop that you're asking to work at used to make 35, 45% after they worked for 6 months for free, full time. Like, they ate shit for that. And like, to be able to have the odd, like, we've owned a shop, so I've got a little bit of built up, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean? And here's the deal: I'm not even the artist. I only do the behind the scenes stuff. But seeing it, and then seeing my wife, who, you know, she's young, but she started when she was 19, right? Like, and so like that was around the time where coils were the prominent avenue. Like, you know what I'm saying? The whole shop was lit up, sounding like an electrical problem. You know what I mean? Like, that lingering, I guess, like culture, like, it was gritty. And I'll be honest with you, not all of it's cool or admirable. A lot of it's dark too. Let's be real. But there's something about that came with this sense of respect that I believe the professional world at large has not seen the last 3 to 5 years, because everybody wants more money, quick return, not to put in their due diligence. There's no tradesmen, there's no journeymen, there's no people putting in their apprenticeships. They just want to make money right away. And I think that right now, the fact that you're telling the traditional story and the grind of it and the hustle of it, back when they were making $50 for a freaking sleeve, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy to me. Back when that was the reality of the situation, like Freddie Negretti back in like the 77, you know, the 80s, like, it's a different world. So for you to bring that history, that tradition, that rawness to present time, to me, is so, I think that is also what makes this so unique and so special. And so, again, here I am gassing you up, man. Sorry, but ultimately, yeah, you could use it, man. Put it out there. But ultimately, like, I think that is what I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to, like, if I'm put that on the table and I pull up the top layer and I'm like, what is this? What I believe this is that you found, with a humble and upright heart, you found something out of curiosity that resembled passion, which you admired. You allowed yourself to be educated by humility, and not talking, but listening, which then gave you the context to go then build an environment for the cultural roots of this industry to actually be able to tell the story that is untold, because they're not the ones that get on IG and post about it, because that's not what they do. And it connects at a perfect time, because all of the whitewash tattoo industry, and here's the deal, like, I say that with a grain of salt, because there's some people out there, and I'm not saying, like, I respect people who are still pulling coil, but like, that to me is cool and all. Like, my wife doesn't, not anymore. She hasn't for a while. That's not it. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is respect for the industry. And I feel like, be it that has changed, that's shifted, because it's so populated now by people who are just in shops. Because I think there's tattoo artists in what's it called when you do the micro thing and you do facials?
The microblading or the SMP, or
yeah. What is that shop called? What do you call it when is there like a shop for that, or just a microblading shop?
I mean, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Is that esthetician or like esthetician?
Yeah. There's esthetician shops with tattoo artists in them now, paying $500 a month for booth rent.
Right.
No commission, no nothing, no artist over them. They started there and they're still there. Like, to me, that's crazy. Like, that doesn't fit the industry, but at the end of the day, that's their grind. They're making more money. Why wouldn't they? So because that's happened, the industry can, quote unquote, and I'm saying this is like an angry old man, like I've tattooed for 30 years or something like that, but maybe I should shut up about it. But like, I'm saying this, saying like, it feels like the industry is a little whitewashed, but truthfully, I don't think it necessarily is. I think it's just inflated right now. And the fact that what you're doing is meeting the industry at this time is so cool. At the rise of this tattoo industry, when every Joe Schmo and Jane Doe is getting into the industry, you're bringing in the roots. Like, to me, that's dope. And so I think that is the essence of what makes this specifically the artist collection so special. I think that on the other side of that, I want to ask you this question: why not? I know it's kind of crazy to ask this, and forgive me, I'll cut it out if need be, but why not try to pursue this full time? Because when you talk about this, you get more jazzed than anything. Now, I know like immediately, like YouTube has revenue and stuff like that, but you're doing this out of just with your time. But like, is there a way to monetize this? Can you get it on Netflix? Can you get it on Prime? Like, your quality is obviously there. Like, you know, if you were getting paid, you probably even do even more backstory footage in all of that. You probably bring in maybe 1 or 2 more, 3 more, maybe crew. Who knows? Why not like do this all the time?
For sure. No, I mean,
Sorry for the rant, by the way, bro.
No, dude.
Lord have mercy.
I love it all. Like, there's so many things I was like, oh, like, and so many rabbit holes we could go down. But to answer that question specifically, I'll say like 2 things. Like, one, you know, I mean, depending on which side of the coin you look at, good reason, bad reason, risky, you know, versus not risky. Like, I would say I'm naturally like a pretty non-risky person. So like, I know what I'm pulling in with the business. I'm in a new house right now. I got a mortgage, got this, you know what I mean? And from a business standpoint, like, I actually do enjoy the business side of talking about my business, PHX Productions. This is not anything related to the Artist Connection right now. Like, that's something that I still enjoy. And so that's also what pays, you know, the bills at the end of the day. Obviously the 2 worlds are connected because most of my clients are tattoo and everything related to the Artist Connection tattoo. So there's definitely a bridge there. And like I said, because I'm not naturally a risky person, it's like, cool, this is the revenue. I know what I'm bringing in, doing that. And it also gives me, I'm meeting new people on every project and doing this and doing that because I work in the tattoo space, it's giving me these relationships. So there's still the desire to like be in that world, do those things, still do client projects and things like that.
Fair.
On, you know, I guess also addressing too, the channel is monetized. I do make some money, but it's not obviously enough to just like jump ship or to where I would feel comfortable jumping ship right at this very moment. And I'll put even numbers out there to put in perspective. I want to say the highest viewed video on the channel has like 170,000 views. And that one was kind of a bit more of a, like, it's called 100K Japanese bodysuit. And that one was kind of, I knew that would do well just because of the title. Like, again, same thing. I cleared from the artist. Are we okay? His name is Shige. Are we okay to put that info out there? The guy who has the bodysuit, he put that out there. But that made like, I want to say like $400 or $500, maybe $600. You know, that's 170,000 views. So that's kind of put in perspective. Most of them, like, they got like 12,000, 10,000. So it's like not anywhere near what I'm making from the business side. So there's that. Number 2, because I've been very lucky enough to be surrounded by people, again, from a business side, in the fitness space, in the tattoo space, things like that. The more, like you said, like, okay, why don't I go to Netflix or this or that, whatever, like, those are cool things that I'd maybe love to get to down the line. But I want to say the main thing that's become evident to me really over the past 2 years is control. Again, I got into this so that I could tell the stories that I wanted to tell when I wanted to tell them, with no outside yes, no, maybe so, you know, red light, stop it, you can't put this out. With kind of adding more thing, like with adding sponsors, with adding this, with adding that, that is 1000% the direction I'd like to go and, you know, want to move. I kind of have arbitrary numbers that I want to hit before I try to start introducing sponsors and things like that, because I know that that also comes with, you know,
True.
a baggage, you know, it
Still,
comes with baggage to where if
Or
I'm
expectations.
exactly. And again, and this will be something that I'm going to have to get to this bridge once I get there. But like, if I'm telling this raw, authentic story and my whole thing is about doing right by the industry and the artists, and then at, you know, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, it's like, hey, go buy this or do that. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm going to have to figure out a way to do that naturally in the way that I think is still real and authentic. But at the same time, it's like that wasn't the main reason why I did it. And to be honest, you could even say that the business now funds the channel. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of, you know, it doesn't really make the amount of money that because I have had some people help me edit or help me film, get a second camera on set, this, that, whatever. I have a list of like the amount of dollars that I've spent on the channel and also the amount of dollars that I've made on the channel. And obviously I've spent more on the channel than I've made. And again, like, I mean, that's a lot of businesses. You got to put in more eventually to get back out. So yeah, like, could I drop everything tomorrow and try to go all in on the channel? Yeah, probably. You know what I mean? And like, I do have the confidence that it would be successful within time. And maybe that's a short amount of time. Maybe that's a long amount of time. I don't know. But like I said, I feel like the other aspect of it is like, you can look at the channel, like there's a bunch of different formats and kind of things that I'm doing right now. And like, my biggest thing is like, I'm not trying to run full speed in the dark. I want to have a more clear direction, you know, in terms of like, I know big picture what I'd like to do. And there's a ton of ideas I won't get into now that I'd like to associate with that channel, or that I think could spawn from the channel. But I think that's kind of where I'm like, okay, let me truly get down the game plan before I start sprinting. And this also leans into the business to where like, I don't have enough bandwidth. That's why I didn't post a video for a full year to do the business and to do the channel and to do that. So my next iteration with really all the work that I do is how can I have people help me out, but still keep the quality of content, whether that's for the business or whether that's for the channel. The business is finding skilled enough people and still put out a good content, or still put out good content for my clients that I built trust with by doing everything myself. On the YouTube channel side, it's how do I still keep that raw, authentic storytelling side if I'm not controlling every aspect of the video, which I don't think I should be. You know, I'd like to have more people and more input and different perspectives helping.
But you have to protect the elements that make it special, though.
Yes. You know, so, and that could be a very long-winded, like, cop-out answer. But like I said, I think realistically it goes back to, like I said, those 2 points. Like, I'm not naturally a risky person. I'm like, hey, I'm going to build it to a point to where I know it can self-sustain before I probably jump ship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just kind of the person that I am, you know, and whether that's, you know, good or bad. I know plenty of people, I work with plenty of people that are like, this is it. I'm jumping, you know, they jumped in yesterday, you know what I mean? And those are, you know, I learn a lot from that. And I think that definitely like paints a picture of like, and maybe I should put some more value and more confidence, you know, into some of those decisions and in the steps that I make moving forward.
Let me ask you about that then. And I want to ask you a little bit more. I have a few questions for you. I want to respect your time, but how much time you got before I drag you out of into the
I'm
water?
good until 5. So,
5. Okay. So you got your time. You got what, 50 minutes?
Yeah, like 50 minutes. So.
Okay. I got a handful of questions. So good. All right. So let me get to this one real quick. The wrestle that you just explained is this conversation of like totality and responsibility. Like, to be extreme, to be completely sold out for something is practically or worldly concerning. It's irresponsible. But when you know that you're meant for something, you're like, I will bet the house on it. Like, because if not, I'm going to die. So I don't care what everything else costs. Like, this is who I am, right? Like, that to me is something I struggle with too, because it's like I want to be sold out for something, right? And and so, but then like my wrestle is like, maybe that should be my faith, maybe that should be Jesus that I'm sold out for, right? And then on the other side, it's like, but can I have a redeemed path or career that I'm sold out for too, right? Like maybe that is like, what is that? Building my agency? Is it a podcast? Is it, private equity? Is it whatever? Who knows, right? When it comes to that, right, kind of wrestling with, because it sounds like you kind of desire to be sold out for something too, but you also are a man of responsibility and stewardship. What does that battle look like for you? What does that wrestling look like for you, going back and forth between those two roads, per se?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it too is, and I think it's become more evident probably than, again, past like year or so, to where there's so many things where like I spend pretty much all week like sat down right here at this desk behind me, like editing videos, and most of the time it is for clients. And again, sometimes it's for myself, but by the time it gets to, Saturday, Sunday, like I'm ready to relax and like not look at a screen. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I think and I almost look at it like digital, like from a digital perspective, that's where I make my living. But sometimes, again, you get scrolling through social media, you're like, man, like, you just get stuck and like caught up in that world. And it's kind of like, what, I mean, these are real questions I've asked, like, is this worth it? Am I, this, that, whatever, like I'm putting a lot of time and energy into something that's people are going to swipe on, whatever. And I also think it's to a point to where like I've been, like I said, I'm still young, but I've been doing it for over a decade, to where, especially lately, it's kind of like, man, like, this is getting a little redundant or a little boring, to where, like I said, that's what's brought up some of those thoughts of like, I need to get some help. I need to utilize this, because it's like, you can't run at full speed forever. You know what I mean? And I also look towards the future of, okay, cool, I'm 26 now, but when I'm 36, do I still want to be running the same pace, doing the exact same things that I'm doing right now? By then, as family expanded, or other business opportunities, things like this, I still truly believe that I'll still always be in the video kind of realm, the creative realm. But I do think that will change as I get older, where maybe I'm not necessarily doing every single thing myself. Maybe I'm running a team that's doing certain things, so I guess going all in, this and that, like for the channel, like at least the way that I kind of look at it, we're like, I'm kind of all in already on making content, which, yes, I took that leap 10 years ago,
Sure.
but like, that's still pretty not the norm, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Like I'm a freelancer. It's not the traditional like 9 to 5, this and that. And again, things have been pretty good for me from a business sense, but there is still that ebb and flow. You have your bad months, you have your good months where you're like, man, like, you know what I mean? And so I think it will always adapt and change, but I do think that will be a constant. And I do try to sit back and think like how lucky I am sometimes, because it's like, I can complain where like, oh, I'm tired of making videos. And some people would kill to be in the position that I'm in right now, so that kind of puts it into perspective a little bit. So I don't know if that fully answers kind of the question, but
it does. I mean, the wrestle's a wrestle for a reason, right? There's two opposing forces that both hold value, right? And it's like, which one? And it's like the soul always wins, right? And I think that I don't think it's a personality thing. I think personalities are truly a culmination of small choices based on influence and just intuitive desire. But I also think that there comes a point in time where it's like timing is just a huge part of a lot of decisions. Like this could be something you pursue once everything is standardized in your business. You've got your editors, you know what I'm saying? Maybe you've got maybe you're just like producing and then somebody's shooting the videos. You've got a post-production guy, and then you've got an extra 20 hours a week now. So of course you're going to go, if that revenue is stabilized, of course you're going to go do something that you're passionate about, right? So it makes sense. I hear you. It does answer the question. And so let me ask you this then, man, because what I hear sounds like it's your like the more deep rooted underlying passion ends up coming back down to this word storytelling, right? What do you think it is? I know that's like it's already a deep conversation we've been down, but I want to go even further. I want to get to a place where we crack into the oil that people aren't used to seeing, smelling, hearing about, talking about. What is it about storytelling? And you can talk about whether that's generally speaking or relative to this industry, but what is it about storytelling that you think you enjoy so much, and why do you think people resonate with your content so much within storytelling? Again, relative to the industry or generally speaking?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start general and then kind of go to the industry. I think generally speaking, I kind of talked about it earlier, where like we're in this social media age where everything is very much short form. And like from a technical standpoint, like it's short form, we're scrolling past, we're consuming, just like, and how much of it really sticks with us. Like the amount of saved videos that like I have on Instagram that like I will probably never go back and look at, you know what I mean? Like it's hundreds at
100%.
this point, you know? And like, yes, they made me feel something in the moment, but they maybe don't stick with me, you know, versus I think it's more rewarding as a storyteller. But another reason I like to tell stories is because I do think they do stick with you, you know, and like storytelling is so old. Like I said earlier, like, you know, we have books and before that and scrolls and on caves. And, you know, eventually now we're in this, you know, video age and maybe, you know, chat GPT, and who knows, I might be cooked in the next 5 years and I even have a job. But I think there is something like just very resonates with people, you know, about just like a genuine like story being told. And I think it's number one, technically it's hard to do. It takes a lot of time and energy and patience. And so that is really like the content that I also like to consume. And again, not all the time. You have all the things that you know like to watch and things like that. But I think I've kind of learned just by watching and trying to emulate the things that I enjoy. And then that, you know, I believe has gotten to where I thought YouTube was a good platform because it, you know, is good for long form content. But then on top of that, like I said, if I'm going to put so much time and energy into a video, and like I'd like for it again to like be in people's brains, or at least for them to think about it a little bit, you know, longer, because it's more rewarding. I feel like people get more out of it. And then I also believe too, where, and will this happen, you know, only time will tell, to where like, because we're so used to the short form, I do think people were going to crave that kind of more long form, authentic kind of content, you know, whether that's next week or whether that's, you know, 5 years from now. And the fact that like I can build this library, you know, at least as far as the channel goes, is super nice, because it rewards you putting more water into that cup, you know. And then from the business side, like, and this isn't true for every business, but businesses are businesses. They're not necessarily the best at giving like a raw, authentic story. So that's kind of what I get hired for, is to take that and to bottle it up in a 10 to 20 minute, whatever, you know what I mean, video that's consumable for their audience.
Mm-hmm. That's good, man. It's interesting. I think you're onto something. I think it's already happening where people are craving long form. I think that's why podcasting is exploded the last specifically 3 years, but like it's been on the rise from like 5. I also think too, though, that you hit something that was really interesting to me. I can't tell you how many times I'm scrolling past the video and I'm like, yo, this is a game changer. I can't remember any of them though the next day. Like, yo, this is gonna, you know, I need to do this. This is huge. I'm sending it to 5 people so I don't forget. I'm saving it. I'm telling my wife about it. I'm texting to somebody, just trying to not forget it. Because I know that even if it's profound, it leaves me. It's almost like stories are something that you can wear, but like short form videos are something you can just put in your pocket. You forget about it. And I think that the long form is something that people have more of an opportunity to identify or resonate with versus use as utility. And I think that that's why long form is so valuable, and it will probably always at least carry a deeper weight than short form content. I think people are getting really good at telling exemplifying or creating depth within short form content. But even then, it's like, how much of a person's story can you really tell in 10 seconds? And so
Right.
all that said, like even like Chuco Moreno, like this guy who looks like a legit cholo, the little cartoon guys, you know what I'm saying? Like he looks like the guy on the posters. Like my friends used to have all, do you remember the homies, like the cartoons that they had different
Yeah.
characters and stuff like that? He looks like a legit homie character. You get little plastic ones, you'd have them on the posters, they'd be on the freaking choppers, they'd be wearing the lokes, like everything was like so, to this day now, like stereotypical, but like back then it was just culture. That at the surface looks like a stereotype to people who don't know, but when you crack into it, Lord, there's a DNA strand of stories and culture. So even that perspective, like you're bringing in people who people know by reflection or by perception, but they don't know based on the story, the DNA, the beneath the surface, the under the hood, right? Because it's easy to assess and assume and associate, but it's not easy to comprehend the depth of. And I think that's what is also a really cool part about what you do is like Shine was a lot of people in the last like 10 years know about Shine, right? Because Instagram, what platform was that show on?
I think it was TMZ. No, not
TMZ.
TMZ. That's the TLC or
It was
MTV
a major,
or HTV. One of the something with TV in it.
yeah, something that's like on the channels that you only see now in hotels, right? Like everybody like is on streaming platforms now, but like before that, everybody had. That's how I got introduced to him, was the show. I didn't know him by social media until the show, which is crazy because he's been doing it for a minute too, and he's not even that old. But
Right.
these are the stories that I think that people are cracking into. But one of the things that I think is really cool about what you do, and I wanted to kind of like zoom away from like just the storytelling within the tattoo industry, but like one of the things I think that you are really good at doing is like finding the right story. And I think that that's interesting because you could just pick anybody that's well known, but I feel like you're a little bit more articulate than that. You mentioned earlier that there's still some projects that you haven't gotten to that you really want to. I want to know, like, are those all artists? Are those outside of the tattoo industry? Like, do you have any like cravings to create products for people outside the tattoo industry? Like, tell me a little bit about the people you haven't done projects for or with yet that you really want to.
Yeah. I think like, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, like, and this isn't every project, but I think a large majority of projects that I get super excited about are like giving a spotlight to people that don't already have it. And again, that could fall into like a lot of the OGs, like people that have amazing stories and amazing history, but just it's not even so much that they don't have the microphone, it's they don't know how to hold the microphone right. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
That's well said.
Yeah. So they, and it's hard, it's frustrating to watch because like maybe you had a personal dialogue with them, how rich their history is or how good their stories are, but it's just like they're turned this way when everyone else is turned the other way, and that's just because of social media and things of that nature, to where they're just they're not the best, versus there are people that are really good at social media that aren't the best. They don't have history. They're not great artists, but because they're really good at leveraging this marketing tool, they're able to get a large, kind of majority of audience. And I kind of go back and forth because there's a lot of ideas and videos I have where I could do, documentaries and sit down interviews and podcasts or whatever with like OGs. And there's also ideas that I have that I could do with some of these, hype beast, crazy, living that lifestyle like tattooers. And my biggest thing is like, it's a weird analogy, but the analogy that I've always tried to explain because it makes the most sense in my head is like, you think about those photographers or videographers that are like filming animals out in like Africa, and they got those big old long lenses and they're whatever, and like they're out there for who knows how many hours, like trying to get that money shot. Like you can't tell that lion what to do. Like you just got to sit and hope you're there for that moment, or you have to be there for that moment. You can't tell it to jump, do a backflip, go in a circle. Like it's going to do its thing. And that's more or less the way that I try to treat the industry. Don't get me wrong, I've got a lot of my own opinions and viewpoints, but again, as much as I'm in the space, I still feel like an outsider in the way that I've never put ink in skin, and I probably never will. That's another thing where I've seen a lot of, like, if you want to call them like tattoo influencers or tattoo content creators, where they start off making content, they're not artists, maybe they're just collecting, and then eventually they want to take that step to become an artist. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If that's, what you want to do, that's amazing. And you're obviously passionate about this, industry or the world. So that's something you wanted to do. But I think, like, because I know my passions in the video and the storytelling side, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to stay in that lane. And because of that, I feel like people are more likely, to share. Like, I'm not going to go and like share their industry secrets or like do all this and that. And like, I'm truly trying to almost kind of be, even though I have to be in the world, sometimes you have to take a step out of it to like fully, capture,
That's good.
So as far as like ideas and stuff, naturally, people that I have a personal relationship with, it's not so much that I have a friendship that I want to make a video with, because I know them and we've had dialogue, we've told stories, and we know each other. Like that, again, the more I know the subject, the better of a story I know I can tell. So a lot of the people I know, like, that is kind of where a lot of the ideas come from. But like I mentioned earlier, I knew that 100K Japanese bodysuit video would do well purely based off of the title. And there's a few videos that I have this like a notes, my like iCloud notes, that like, if I have a little idea, I'll put it in there. And there's like one or two in there that I'm like, I know that these would probably do even better than that one. But again, you mentioned it well, like sometimes I think there are good stories, but putting them out at certain times might not be the best time to put it out. Like, for instance, if I started the channel with a 100K Japanese bodysuit, and I just think of any like clickbait title video, whatever, and those are my first 10 videos, that's now what my channel is, whether I think it is or not. And so I think kind of starting off, like, I'm trying to dive into that real authentic content. Again, I think everything should be real and authentic, but with nature. And again, I don't always want to chase YouTube and the algorithm and clicks and everything like that, but that is the nature of the game sometimes. So there are a few ideas that I'm like, I need to tread lightly with this, because I don't want it to go into that it's only for clicks, it's only for views, this person doesn't respect the industry, or even for somebody to even somewhat get it twisted. And again, I can't please everybody. There's always going to be people out there that do that. And I'm trying to like think of like artists and ideas, without like fully giving them away. But I can say this, like, diving into, like, again, how much artists are paid, you know what I mean? Like, that's a huge thing, but who can I find that is willing to put that information out there? But how can we also do it in a tasteful way? Like, I'm trying to treat it more from an educational standpoint, not just like, look at this person and watch them flex, what I mean? To put in perspective for the up and coming artist, but like, how can we do, things like that? Like I said, with the OGs, being able to capture stuff with them while they're still here. But also, I think this would be another one, is like getting conversations between, old heads and new people. And, you see those like Jubilee videos where they like, we brought in 5 of these people and 5 of that people, or whatever it is, you know what I mean? That are always crazy. But it's like, there's a billion ideas, you know what I mean? I think it's, like I said, honestly, number one, it's making content that I myself would want to watch. But number two, it's, when is the right time and place for the story, and I think that's something that like naturally kind of comes up over time, where like when I reach out to an artist and like they get back and they're excited and we're now rolling collectively on an idea, like, to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this was probably meant to go at this time.
That's interesting. So you're almost like, you're deliberate. I love this. And I also think that like you almost have to, and maybe it comes naturally because you are an artist, but you kind of gotta play it by feel. Like timing is everything, because if an artist isn't feeling it, literally, if they're not feeling it, they're not going to do it. That's why they're doing what they're doing for a living, right? Yep. So interestingly enough, like, there's probably people that you're waiting on for the right time to pull the trigger, just by intuition or relationship, or continued dialogue, which is super interesting to me. So like, and I'm getting into the last couple of questions that I've got for you, but like, how did like even the Good Time Charlie video come about? Like, what was that like? You know, and for people listening, you know, the specifically just within that project, within like just simply the artist collection at large, you have some that are subject based, and then there's some tattoo tours though, right? And so this, it's not just the documentary style, it's not just like subject oriented. You know, like one of them's a video of you getting tattooed, which I like, they're just different, right? They're all kind of varying. So the one you did was Good Time Charlie, and go ahead and preface and give some context of Good Time Charlie and kind of how, you know, Freddie Negretti and even Ed Hardy, like that kind of, if you can just give a brief context to that, I think names like that will kind of bring in some context for people who don't know, and also give some, you know, some context to why that video is so dope. Like, give some context to who Good Time Charlie is, that shop, that era. And then if you could just tell, like, how did you even manage that? Was that through Bishop? What was it like? Just give some, just give some context.
So, and this is stuff that, like, even when I film the stuff with Freddie, I'm still learning more and more bits and pieces every day. But just think about modern black and gray tattooing, and you got people that are literally almost putting, it looks like a painting on skin, you know, or just like just any like modern day black and gray artwork. That is still relatively a new tattoo style that really only popped off in like mid 1970s, maybe even late 1970s, as far as what we would think of like black and gray. That was a style that it's been around for a little bit, but it was mostly prevalent in prisons. And so, and it doesn't look anything like it does now. Like, it was a much more, you know, toned down version. Most people, when they think like tattoos, they think American traditional. It's these big bold lines. It's the eagle. It's the sparrows. It's the ship. It's the whatever. This was eliminating those kind of bigger lines and basically, like I said, trying to make as realistic of a picture on skin. That essentially came, you know, to where people wanted to get that weren't in prison. And so Good Time Charlie, who is a tattoo artist, he had a shop called Good Time Charlie's that he opened up in East Los Angeles, and it's him and Jack Rudy, who was his apprentice. And so they opened up that shop, and they kind of brought that style to East Los Angeles. Why this is key is because a guy like Freddie Negretti, because Good Time Charlie and Jack are both white guys, but they're down. Like, they, you know, they're in the culture, they care about it, like, and have given to, you know, the Chicano community, you know, more than most. Freddie, you know, is somebody who is Chicano. He comes from a pretty heavy background in gangs in Southern California. He was somebody who learned how to tattoo in prison. And so they had this shop in East Los Angeles. Freddie eventually started to tattoo at that shop because he wanted to be a professional tattoo artist. And so that's kind of the cliff notes of where, like, that kind of, you know, was where like Chicano black and gray kind of started, to where the imagery was more Chicano based, but it had that black and gray style. And then obviously there was other parts of the world where people were doing black and gray, but that's kind of where you can pin back to where it started at. And so those three, Good Time Charlie, Jack Rudy, Freddie Negretti, are kind of known as like the godfathers of black and gray. And then Freddie, especially like Chicano black and gray tattooing. So with Charlie, and we had done a project with Bishop where it was him and Jack Rudy, and also I'll say RIP to Jack Rudy because he passed away. I think it's been probably about 6-7 months at this point, and it was kind of unexpected, and that was a very huge blow to the tattoo industry because he had such a big presence. And all three of these guys, and again, I didn't know them when they were coming up, but right now in their later life, they're all three amazing men and very kind and patient, and just really cool to be around. With that being said, they made a book that they kind of wanted to tell the history of that shop, that Good Time Charlie shop that originated in East Los Angeles. So they took a bunch of stories and pieces from the artists that were there at the time and kind of collectively put it together with pictures and illustrations and stuff like that. And so we did a little short documentary with Charlie and Jack for that book. And so that was the very first time that I met Charlie. And I'll say this, because I feel like I have a pretty decent relationship with Charlie, but I think every single person that's met him also feels that way. He is like everyone's tattoo grandpa. Like he doesn't care who you tattooed, how much money you have, whatever. Like he will just sit there and talk to you and like have a great time. Like he's just one of the most genuinely like kind people that I've ever met. And
That's awesome.
so that was the first time I met him, was doing that project. And then when I was thinking about, who can I interview for this channel, I was like, why don't I just, ask, you know what I mean? Like worst thing he can say is no. And so he's an older guy. And so he's not, you just call and then he'll pick up all the time, so where I reached out through, he's got like a manager, but he still obviously controls what he does, and so I reached out to her like, hey, do you think you'd be interested? She talked to him. He was. And then I, at the time, was living in Northern California. And so he only lived about an hour and a half drive away in Modesto. Oh. And so I just drove over there and I kind of had some of the talking pieces and things that I wanted to get, kind of out of that interview. And that's kind of how that project came together. But I thought it was kind of serendipitous, the fact that that's one of the, like, I think it's like the second video or third video on the channel. And I was like, I felt like it'd be super cool that the first like long form interview that I did was with one of the, godfathers of black and gray tattooing.
So cool, man. It's so cool, which is interesting because you do the tattoo tour with them, but then you also have the actual full length interview, which is the fourth video that you have. Now, as these videos are progressing, man, like, because this is obviously like going back to 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when you started the channel, 3 years ago. You're still balancing. Were you doing work with Bishop at that time?
Yep.
Okay. So you're doing work with Bishop, so you still have that freelance career working. I know that this is one thing that we'll probably have to do a second interview, man, because I want to ask you too about the things where it's like when people want you to work full time, but you kind of want to you want the consistent work, but you also don't want to work for anybody specifically, like that.
One thing that this, and I kind of didn't preface it, but I've been a freelancer the whole time. Like I can't say I've never got a W-2, but I've never gotten a W-2 for video. Let's say that. I've done a little side thing here and there. I made over 600, so now I got it. You know what I mean? Whatever. But yeah, like that. So this whole time I can say yes or no or move on or do whatever I kind of want, which is cool and scary at the same time, as you well know. So,
which 100%, which to me sounds like there's a piece. I mean, I think the artist in you honestly resonate. You've got like this old soul to, I mean, you've heard that before, I'm sure. You got a bit of an old soul, right? And I think that part of you that's also an artist probably resonates really well with a lot of these OGs that pulls you guys in a place of like just proximity and relationship, man, which is super interesting. But not to go down that rabbit hole again, man. Last question I have for you. What does the future look like for you, man? Like, so many of the conversations we've had have been about practical business strategy and scaling within, just business at large, whether that be mine or yours. With, PHX Productions specifically, what does that look like for you? Do you want a production house? Like, do you just want a small team to run around the world with? Do you just want to do local stuff? Now that you're in, Texas, you're not in Cali anymore, which is where a lot of your work was based out of, especially, I guess the first video you put out was the time I went to China with world famous tattoo artists, right? So it's everywhere. It's international. Yeah. But like, what does the future for you and your business look like? And what are the intentional things you're doing to get there?
Yeah, I think, I've already mentioned it. And one of the bigger things that I'm trying to work on this year is, again, stop, doing every single aspect of my own business, as cool as that is, because I've been able to learn from every bit and piece from doing the accounting, doing my own marketing, building my website, making the videos, and then obviously, the day to day when I'm making video and content for clients.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's like, there's obviously can be some burnout because you don't love you do anything long enough, it becomes a job, even if you're passionate about it. And so, like I said, being able to find people and things that where I can, maybe I film or have somebody edit or do things like this where that's kind of the, the steps that I'll be taking. I've written out some like, I guess, what do you call it? Not for like people send a resume, but some qualifications that like I'm looking for. I'm going to be start reaching out to some people here soon. And kind of exploring that route. Just for, certain freelance work, not everything, because obviously want to take it over time, build systems, things like that. So I think when I first started, I was so involved in the creativity. Like it was like, how do I, shoot this? How do I tell this story? How do I frame that? How do I color grade this? And everything was like, how do I make this video better? I think really probably, since 24, 25 is where I was like, okay, well, this is legitimately a business. Like, I don't think I before then looked at it that way. So I think now coming, to this stage of life, I'm trying to treat it as such, while still keeping the things that got me here, intact, with those passion, the storytelling, the relationships, and things of that nature. So I would say that's, kind of realistically the future, and like I said, the steps are, finding those people, you know what I mean? And the people that are qualified, but also the people that like I enjoy working with and things like that. So I do think there's probably a little bit of control. I've had the control for so long. And it's taken me probably a little longer than it should have to release the reins, on certain aspects of what I do. But that's kind of the next evolution. And then, with being in Texas and moving away from California, it was a big change, big shift. So I guess for some context, my wife is in the Air Force. And so I used to live in Southern California. That's how I got connected with Bishop, moved up to Northern California, was up there for about 4.5, 5 years. And then I'm now here in West Texas, excuse me, back in my home state. So it definitely does separate me from that. Like I said, a lot of the knowledge I have and people I know and artists that I've connected with, no pun intended, have been in, California, and that has had a huge part and imprint on my life. I've said, like, I'm a Texas boy with Cali stamps, you know what I mean? So it's obviously difficult, but I've been very fortunate to where I'm still working remotely with a lot of those brands and companies. And I think COVID actually made my life better and easier now because, a remote videographer wasn't probably a thing, pre-COVID, you know what I mean? And realistically, from a practical standpoint, I go somewhere, I film for a good chunk of time. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 5 days at a time. And then I'm back here and I'm editing here at this computer. And that's kind of what I do. I will say though, is like, I do have a lot of fun time collaborating with the Bishop team and some of the other clients and shops and that I work for. But, being able to find some more local stuff here to Texas, to where luckily, like I said, this is my home state. So being able to reach back, out to people that are from here, and also reaching out to artists that I know that live here in Texas, whether it's for business or whether it's also to maybe potentially make some content, for the channel. So a lot of those seeds have kind of already been planted. And I would say that, being a solo kind of operator and being a solo operator for so long, I think it's definitely given me the desire to just collaborate again. I know I can always get better, and I know a quick and easy, what do they say? Like, I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's like, if you want to go somewhere fast, go by yourself. You want to go for a long time, go with other, something like that, to where, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's right.
You got it.
To where, I mean, you look at like a movie, like in the credits of every movie, like how many hundreds of names are, on that to make that big production happen. And like I said, I'm fully aware that there are people that are far talented far more talented than me in every single aspect of business that I currently do. So it's like to raise the elevation of the product, and I can also learn from these people and we can collaborate and share ideas. Like that's something I think I've been craving lately. And I say craving because it's like I'm here at home by myself most of the time, you know what I mean? And I've got
dark
guys like
ass
you
room, bro.
exactly right. I know I gotta get some more lights in here. They're coming, but yeah, I mean that's the reality of it. Like I with the digital age of technology, I've got guys like you and some other guys that I like to tap in with frequently that I'm able to have a dialogue and understanding with you guys that I'm not able to have with the random, person down the street. And that's just because they have different interests. We're not in the same, work environment and field. And there's nothing wrong with that. I can still get a lot of great things from those people and those relationships. But there is something to be said about people that are going down, the same path as you. They have dealt with the same struggles, and can kind of put you on game. And again, sometimes you got to stumble and fall and, burn your finger on the hot pan to truly learn yourself. But even just to get it out there, you know what I mean? And and I'll be completely honest, because I've no problem saying this on the podcast, is like you saying like, why don't you go all in on the channel? Like it made me think like, I definitely haven't been putting as much effort into it as I should be, and so I think that's a little look in the mirror moment of like, okay, well, if this person has more confidence than I do in myself, why? So that, things like that, to where it's like, okay, I got to sit and think and go to the whiteboard.
Yeah, I love it, man. I mean, and I say all that with due respect, man, because I'm just looking at this project like, fan that flame, bro. This is yeah, you know what I think, man. You know what I think. So I highly encourage, man, find a way. I don't know, tooth and nail. I don't care what it looks like, man, but lean into that project, man, because I've watched probably about 75% of them now. And there's just nothing like it out there, man. Of course, man. Of course. Man, no, this all makes sense, man. Again, I've loved being able to crack into just kind of peek behind the curtain a bit, man, to just hear about what makes you tick, man. The gears turn with reason with you. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of intentionality behind what you do and what you say. And I just kind of wanted to get to know again more of that, like we were talking about even before this call, just like a little bit more of that essence, man. I feel like I've gotten a lot of that, man. And I'll be honest with you, the trajectory of the conversation went different than I thought it would too. It usually does, especially if it's authentic conversation, which I like because I feel like one, it went down a road that just felt raw, and I like that. But also, two, it means we'll probably have to do a part two. So we'll throw it out far enough to where we don't have to reschedule it 3 times this time, But look, man, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your time. I appreciate just being real and sharing everything that you have and just kind of putting it on the table as well. Before, man, I let you be, where can people find you? Obviously, like, not just PH Productions, but I also want you to, like, if there is a specific thing you want to talk about too, please interrupt me. But like, I want you to plug like PHX Productions, the artist collection, anything else, Bishop, whatever. Plug that, and then we can, close out with whatever you want to talk about.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, for business purposes, like I said, I'm operating under PHX Productions. If you go to phx-productions.com, there's a bit about my story and then the portfolio. And then also, if you wanted to reach out or contact me in any way, shape, or form, you can do that there. I'll say like as much as I've done work in the tattoo space for a long time, really only within the past 2 years have I like fully like put my flag in the ground and said like, hey, this is the community I'm serving. And been intentional with that aspect. And then from a day-to-day standpoint, I'm most active on Instagram at phx.phillips. And that's, like I said, I come from the fitness background. I'm married, I got a dog, I got a beautiful wife. So posting, just daily stuff. I do jujitsu. And then also some of the behind the scenes of my business and making videos and stuff there. And then for the Artist Connection, that's on YouTube at the Artist Connection. And like I said, that's the passion project, and where, I will be putting some more, videos out here, hopefully here soon. I got some cooking right now. But I'd say that's a pretty, like I said, raw, authentic version of where my vision is at, and a true expression of the content that I like to create.
Yeah, amazing, bro. I honestly forgot I wanted to ask you this too. Again, we have to do round two,
You're
but
good.
what belt are you right now, man? Are you purple belt? Next year, purple belt?
Yeah, it's been a year at purple, which is kind of weird. And so I like maybe just now feel like I'm kind of coming into it. You know what I mean? Like every gym's different, this and that, whatever. I've been very lucky to have some good training partners, but that's a whole nother topic on itself. But yeah, that's been fun. I've been enjoying that.
How long you been rolling?
It's been 5 years.
5 years.
Like late 2020.
They say brown and black are gonna take you another 5, right? Like you can get the first 2. I mean, it's just like weird.
It depends, man. And like honestly, like don't get me wrong, I'd love to
Not
get
that it
there.
matters, but it matters, you know?
Yes, exactly. And so with being military and like moving around quite a bit, I'll be interested to see how that goes, because I've seen people get stuck. But honestly, I'd rather be a really, really good brown belt than like a really crappy black belt, somewhere. So it's like, we'll see how that goes. But no, it's been a fun journey, and I'm looking forward to continuing it as well.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome, brother. Well, I'll let you be, man. We're getting to that point, man. Dude, we've been going for almost 2 hours, man.
Yeah.
I love it, man. I love it. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate your time, man. We still need to connect on working together when it makes sense, where it makes sense, whenever you can. I would love to work with you on a project. I'm at this point just trying to figure out what I can work on with you, just so we can. Let me know when you got some free time, man, or whenever you get one of those dips, and we'll figure something out. But I appreciate you, man. I respect you. I respect your work. I really appreciate the time that you spent today, everything that you shared, man. And I know that as long as you've been doing this and in the industry, in production, I really do feel like you're just getting started, man. I feel like the horizon's bright for you, man. So I can't wait to see what else you do, man. And we'll have to do this again.
Absolutely, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, man. Peace.
Yeah.